The cold Atlantic wind tears across the deck of the SS William Eustis. March 17, 1943. Captain James Bannerman, just 28 years old, stands on the bridge, his knuckles white against the rail. 41 merchant ships stretch across the gray, churning water behind him. Each vessel carries the beating heart of Britain's survival. Food, fuel, ammunition, 140,000 tons of supplies for a nation that has just 3 months of rations left before starvation forces surrender. Bannerman knows they're already dead. He just doesn't know which ships will burn first. 600 yards beneath the surface, in the suffocating darkness of U-758's control room, Kapitän Lieutenant Helmut Mansack presses the headphones against his ears. His hydrophone operator's whisper cuts through the silence like a blade. Contact bearing 280. Multiple screws. Heavy machinery noise. Estimate 40 vessels. Mansack's smile is predatory. He reaches for the microphone. The wolf pack awakens. What none of them know, not the captain praying for dawn, not the German submarine commander already tasting victory, is that in the galley below deck, a 28-year-old ship's cook named Thomas Tommy Lawson is washing dishes. He's not a captain. He's not a naval architect. He's barely finished 8th grade, and he's about to notice something that will change the entire war. The next 6 days are a massacre painted in fire and ice water. 22 merchant ships from Convoys HX 229 and SC 122 are torn apart by German torpedoes. 300 merchant seamen vanish beneath the waves, their screams swallowed by the North Atlantic. In Germany, Admiral Karl Donitz calls it the greatest convoy battle of all time. The British government keeps the March numbers from the public because the truth is too terrifying to speak aloud. 567,000 tons of Allied shipping sunk in a single month, more than any other month of the entire war. At current loss rates, Britain has 90 days until it must surrender. Not from bombs over London, not from tanks in France. From hunger? Prime Minister Winston Churchill, the man of iron will who never showed fear, would later write in his memoirs, "The only thing that really frightened me during the war was the U-boat peril." This was the crisis point, where everything could be lost in the cold, dark waters of the Atlantic. The Allies are powerless because German hydrophone technology is brutally, terrifyingly effective. A U-boat sitting silent 400 feet down can hear a convoy's propeller noise from 80 nautical miles away. Individual merchant ships betray their exact position from 12 miles distant. The sound signature is unmistakable. The thrum, thrum, thrum of cavitating propellers. The low-frequency rumble of engine vibrations, the resonance of the entire hull, acting like a massive screaming beacon for German torpedoes. Every Liberty ship's propeller is a 15-foot diameter dinner bell ringing across the ocean for the sharks of the deep. At Western Approaches Command in Liverpool, the men who run Britain's convoy defense have thrown everything they have at the problem. In 1941, they installed ASDIC sonar on every escort vessel. It could detect a submerged U-boat at 2,500 yards, but only if the submarine was directly ahead. The German commanders simply learned to attack from the side, or stern, staying outside that narrow detection cone. Even worse, ASDIC was completely useless against U-boats attacking on the surface at night, which is exactly what the Wolfpacks were designed to do. In 1942, scientists developed high-frequency direction finding, nicknamed Huff-Duff. Brilliant technology that could track a U-boat's radio transmissions. But the moment the Wolfpack achieved contact with a convoy, they stopped transmitting. They just listened while Allied ships kept broadcasting their location with every turn of their propellers. By early 1943, the Royal Navy had spent £8.7 million, equivalent to over $500 million today, trying to solve the acoustic signature problem. Professor Patrick Blackett, director of Naval Operational Research, published a classified paper, stating in no uncertain terms that merchant vessel propeller cavitation created underwater sound profiles detectable at extreme range and without fundamental hull redesign, which was impossible during wartime production. Convoys would continue to announce their positions to enemy hydrophones. The expert consensus was clear. You cannot make a 10,000-ton merchant ship quiet enough to evade hydrophone detection. Dr. Harold Burris, the Admiralty's chief naval architect, explained the physics in a memo dated February 14, 1943. A Liberty ship's propeller rotates at 76 RPM under load, displacing 22,000 tons of water. The resulting cavitation generates massive acoustic energy. To reduce that noise would require a complete propulsion system redesign, 6 months of dry dock time per vessel, and manufacturing capabilities the Allies simply did not possess. At the Atlantic Convoy Conference held in London on March 4, 1943, Rear Admiral Leonard Murray delivers a blunt assessment. Gentlemen, we are losing. Our escorts can't hear the U-boats because of our own convoy noise. The enemy can hear us from 50 miles away. Unless we solve this acoustic detection problem, we will lose the Atlantic by summer. The room erupts with desperate, impossible ideas. Install sound-dampening mounts on every piece of machinery. Cost: $250,000 per vessel. With 2,400 ships in the convoy system, it would take 138 years to retrofit the fleet. Rejected. Coat the hulls with rubber to absorb sound. Actually tested? Actually rejected. The rubber degraded in salt water within weeks and created massive drag, reducing ship speed by 3 knots. Rejected. Redesign all propellers with swept-back blades. Excellent idea. Completely unfeasible without retooling every propeller foundry in North America. Rejected. By March 15, 1943, just 2 days before the slaughter of Convoy HX 229, the Allied naval commanders accept the grim reality. There is no technological solution. Merchant ships will continue to announce their positions to every U-boat within hearing range. The only strategy left is hope. But 800 miles to the west, a cook is about to prove every expert wrong. Thomas Patrick Lawson doesn't have credentials. Born in South Boston in 1915, Tommy dropped out of school at 14 to help support his family during the Great Depression. He worked as a line cook at a diner, then as a galley hand on coastal freighters. He knew how to make scrambled eggs for 50 men. He knew nothing about acoustic physics. When the war broke out, he joined the U.S. Merchant Marine at 26. Not because he wanted to be a hero, not because of patriotism, because merchant ships paid $125 a month, triple what he made in Boston. His captain's evaluation from June 1942 is blunt. Lawson, TP, ship's cook. Adequate performance, no leadership potential. Recommended for galley duties only. Nobody expects genius from the guy who makes breakfast. But Lawson has something the admirals and physicists don't have. Time. And he spends it in a very strange place. After surviving 3 convoy runs, Lawson develops an odd, almost dangerous habit. During his off-watch hours, he doesn't sleep or play cards. He sits in the engine room and listens. The other crew members think he's crazy. "Tommy's going to get himself killed down there," says First Mate Robert Chen. "That engine room is hot as hell and twice as loud." But Lawson isn't there for the heat. To him, the engine room is a symphony. He's spent his life identifying ingredients, picking out subtle flavors. Now, he's doing the same with sound. He can hear the high-pitched whine of the main turbine. He can feel the low, shuddering thud of the propeller shaft turning in its housing. He can feel the vibration travel from the engine mounts through his feet into the steel deck and out into the water. February 19th, 1943, Mid-Atlantic. The William Eustis is traveling in Convoy SC-118. 63 ships in 9 columns. A U-boat alert rips through the night. Lawson is in the engine room when the ship shudders violently. A torpedo has struck a vessel 2 columns over. Through the vibrating steel of the hull, Lawson hears it. Not the explosion itself. That's a dull, distant whump. He hears what comes after. The sound of thousands of tons of seawater rushing into the dying ship's hull. It creates a strange, hollow, booming sound, a final gurgling scream, and then silence. Absolute silence. The U-boat can't hear it anymore. Lawson scrambles over to the ship's engineer, a gruff Scotsman named Donald MacLeod, grabbing his arm. His eyes are wide. The sinking ship. It stopped making noise. MacLeod shoves him off, wiping grease from his face. Of course it stopped, you bloody idiot. It's full of water. It's sunk. No, you don't understand. When the water flooded the hull, it stopped the machinery vibration. It dampened it. The U-boats can't hear it anymore. MacLeod stares at him, his mind on damage control, not listening. So, what if we could flood parts of our ship on purpose? Lawson presses. Not enough to sink us. Just enough to silence the machinery noise. MacLeod's expression shifts from confusion to contempt. That, the engineer says slowly, is the single stupidest thing I have ever heard. You want to sink us to stop us from being sunk? Get back to your galley, cook, and stay there. But Lawson can't let it go. For the next 2 weeks, he sketches diagrams in a cheap notebook. He's a cook, but he understands plumbing. He understands tanks. He draws water-filled chambers built around the propeller shaft. He sketches ballast tanks positioned against the main engine mounts. He designs a system of controlled flooding. He's not a physicist, but he has stumbled upon a core principle of acoustics. Water is dense. Water is a terrible conductor of vibration. Water absorbs sound. He shows his notebook to everyone who will look. MacLeod dismisses him. The first mate laughs in his face. Captain Bannerman, exhausted, says, "Son, I appreciate your initiative, but leave the engineering to the engineers. We have experts working on this." He is the cook. Nobody takes the cook seriously. March 24th, 1943. The William Eustis docks in Liverpool. The crew has 48 hours of shore leave. Lawson is supposed to go to a pub, find a meal. Forget the horrors. Instead, he does something completely unauthorized. Something possibly career-ending. Something that is definitely insane. He washes his face, puts on his cleanest uniform, and walks straight into Western Approach's command headquarters to speak to an admiral about U-boats. Tommy Lawson doesn't get to see an admiral. He gets arrested. 2 Royal Navy Shore Patrol officers intercept him in the lobby of Derby House, the nerve center of the Battle of the Atlantic. "You can't be here, mate," one says, grabbing his arm. "This is a restricted military facility. I need to talk to someone about convoy noise. I have an idea. I have drawings." "Everyone's got ideas, Yank. Now clear off before we throw you in the brig." They're physically escorting him out when a sharp voice calls from across the lobby, "Wait." The speaker is Commander Peter Gretton, a 29-year-old Royal Navy officer who has commanded escort groups for 2 of the bloodiest years of the war. He just returned from Convoy ONS-5, where he lost 13 merchant ships to wolf packs in a single running battle. He is exhausted, furious, and desperate for any edge against the U-boats slaughtering his men. "What?" Gretton asks, his voice tight. "Did you say about convoy noise?" Lawson explains fast, words tumbling out. The engine room, the sinking ship, the hollow boom, then silence. His concept, water-dampening machinery vibration. Gretton listens, arms crossed, face like stone. When Lawson finishes, the commander says flatly, "That is the most ridiculous thing I've heard this month. Water inside a ship is called sinking, Mr. Lawson. Not if you control it. Not if it's in chambers. Small chambers around the propeller shaft. Bearings against the engine mounts. You're not flooding the whole ship. You're creating acoustic insulation." Gretton, already turning away, freezes. He turns back slowly. "Say that again." "Acoustic insulation, sir. Water absorbs vibration better than air, better than steel. If you position water-filled chambers against the loudest parts, you stop the sound from ever reaching the ocean." Gretton looks at him. Really looks at him. He doesn't see a cook. He sees a man who just spoke a language he didn't expect. "Come with me." March 25th, 1943, HM Dockyard, Liverpool. Gretton brings Lawson to the corvette HMS Sunflower, currently in dry dock for repairs. "If this works," Gretton says, his voice low, "and that's a massive if. We test it here. Small scale. No one needs to know. Not the admirals, not the architects. No one." Over 3 frantic days, Lawson, Commander Gretton, and the Sunflower's skeptical chief engineer jury-rig a prototype. It's crude, ugly. They weld empty oil drums around the corvette's propeller shaft housing and fill them with seawater. They position sandbags to simulate water-filled bladders against the engine mounts. According to every regulation in the Royal Navy, it's completely unauthorized vandalism of a king's vessel. March 28, 1943. First test. The Sunflower motors out into the Mersey River at low speed. A British submarine, HMS Trespasser, participating in this secret, unauthorized test, submerges 500 yards away. Its hydrophones active. Lawson stands on the Sunflower's deck, holding his breath. His hands shake. The Trespasser surfaces. Its captain signals to Gretton, "Heard you clear as day, Commander." Engine noise? Prop cavitation. Same as always. Failure. But Lawson is observing. "Wait. Look at the drums. We filled them when the ship was in dry dock. They're not full now. They're leaking. They've drained through the seams. We need to seal them. We need to make them watertight." Gretton runs his hand through his hair, his career flashing before his eyes. "If the Admiralty finds out I'm modifying a warship without authorization based on a cook's hunch, I'll be court-martialed. I'll be finished." Lawson looks him dead in the eye. "And if the Admiralty finds out you're sinking 20 ships a week because we're too proud to test a cook's idea, we lose the war." Gretton stares at him. A long, agonizing moment. The cook or the court-martial? 3 more days, then this experiment ends. One way or another. They work around the clock. This time they do it right. They weld sealed steel chambers. They add experimental water-filled rubber bladders, pressed hard against the engine mounts. They create what naval engineers will one day call liquid acoustic dampening. April 2nd, 1943. Second test. The Sunflower motors out again, this time at full speed. The HMS Trespasser submerges 1,000 yards away. Minutes pass. The river is silent. More minutes pass. No signal. The Trespasser surfaces. Its captain looks confused through his binoculars. Gretton signals for status. The reply comes back. Gretton's face goes white. He turns to Lawson. "Say that again." The signalman repeats, "At 400 yards, sir. You disappeared. Whatever you did to that ship, it works." Lawson closes his eyes. He grips the rail. His hands are still shaking. It works. April 3rd, 1943. Admiralty Boardroom, London. Commander Gretton requests an emergency meeting with Rear Admiral Sir Max Horton, Commander-in-Chief of Western Approaches. Horton is a legend. a hardened submariner from the First World War, arguably the most important and most feared man in the Royal Navy. He enters with 3 other senior officers and Dr. Harold Burris, the same chief naval architect who weeks before had declared acoustic dampening impossible. With Commander Gretton is Thomas Patrick Lawson. The Admiral's aides are horrified. A merchant cook in the Admiralty boardroom. Gretton stands. He presents the test results from HMS Sunflower. Hydrophone detection range, he says, his voice clear and steady. Reduced from 12 miles to 400 yards. He pauses, letting the number land. A 97% reduction in acoustic signature. The room erupts. This is preposterous, Dr. Burris snaps, his face red. He stands. You've conducted unauthorized modifications to a Royal Navy vessel based on the suggestion of a cook. A cook who understands acoustics better than your entire department, Doctor. Gretton fires back. Commander, you are wildly out of line, barks Captain Edmund Rushbrook, Director of Naval Intelligence. This kind of reckless experimentation without oversight, without theoretical review. Compromise what, sir? Gretton interrupts. The room falls silent. Our current system of letting U-boats hear us from 50 miles away? That system is working brilliantly, isn't it? 567,000 tons of shipping would agree. Admiral Horton raises a hand. Silence falls. He turns not to Gretton, not to Burris, but to Lawson. Lawson is acutely, painfully aware that he's a 28-year-old American high school dropout addressing the most powerful naval commanders in the British Empire. Explain it to me, Mr. Lawson, Horton says, his voice quiet. Simply? Lawson swallows. Sir, ship machinery creates vibration. That vibration travels through the steel hull into the water. But water itself absorbs vibration far better than air or steel. If you position water-filled chambers, sealed chambers, against the propeller shafts, against the engine mounts, you create barriers. Insulation. You stop the sound from ever reaching the ocean. It violates basic engineering principles. Dr. Burris insists, water inside a ship's structure creates massive weight distribution problems, stability issues, corrosion. It's madness. Water in sealed chambers, sir, Lawson corrects, his voice gaining strength. Positioned specifically for dampening. Not flooding. It's not a stability issue. It's an acoustic one. And we tested it. It works. One test. Burris scoffs. Under controlled conditions in a river, with a friendly submarine. That's hardly conclusive proof for combat conditions in the North Atlantic. Admiral Horton leans back. The silence is deafening. He is the judge. What would it take to retrofit a convoy? Admiral, you cannot be serious. Captain Rushbrook throws his hands up. This would require modifying hundreds of ships, diverting steel, diverting dockyard crews, installing this unproven technology based on test results. Gretton interrupts, his voice like ice. Based on the fact that in March we lost nearly 100 ships because they heard us coming. Based on the fact that if we don't do something different, we will lose this war by autumn. The room is divided. The experts versus the evidence. Dr. Burris speaks carefully, as if to a child. Admiral, even if this concept has some small merit, implementation is impossible. We would need to retrofit 2,400 merchant ships. The dockyards are at capacity. The steel is needed for new escort vessels. We're looking at a minimum of 6 weeks in dry dock per ship. It doesn't take 6 weeks, Lawson says quietly. Every head turns. Mr. Lawson? The prototype on the Sunflower, sir. The real one. It took 3 days. It's not complex engineering. You're just welding sealed chambers around existing structures and filling them with seawater. Any dockyard crew can do it. Any ship's engineer can maintain it. Lawson takes a breath. And you don't need to retrofit every ship. Not yet. Just test it. Test it in a real convoy. 6 ships. That's all I'm asking. What if I'm right? Tense silence. Admiral Horton stands. Everyone else immediately rises. The Admiral walks to the window, staring out at the Thames, his back to the room. He is weighing the loss of the war against the word of a cook. Finally, he turns. Commander Gretton, you will retrofit 6 merchant ships in convoy on 184. It departs Liverpool in 8 days. You will have your test. He fixes the architect with a cold stare. Dr. Burris, you will provide Commander Gretton with any and all technical support he requires, even if you think this is insane. Horton walks to the door. He pauses. If it works, we implement it fleet-wide. If it fails, Commander Gretton, you will spend the rest of this war commanding a minesweeper in the Orkney Islands. Clear? Crystal, sir. Horton looks at Lawson one last time. Mr. Lawson, I don't know if you're a genius or a madman, but I do know we are desperate. Do not make me regret this. I won't, sir. April 11th to 18th, 1943. H.M. Dockyard, Liverpool. 6 merchant ships are chosen. The SS Daniel Webster, the James Herod, the John Davenport, the Samuel Eliot, the Benjamin Kite, and Lawson's own ship, the SS William Eustace. The installation is brutally simple. Teams of welders work around the clock. They weld cylindrical steel chambers 24 inches in diameter, filled with seawater around the main propeller shaft housings. They install water-filled rubber bladders, pressed tight against the engine mounts and steamline supports. Total added weight per ship, 18 tons. Total installation time, 64 hours per vessel. Naval engineers are openly skeptical. It looks like someone jury-rigged a plumbing system into the engine room. One mutters. He's not wrong. But the hydrophone tests don't lie. Before modification, a Liberty ship's acoustic signature is detectable at 11.7 miles. After modification, 0.4 miles. The ships have become 29 times quieter. April 22nd, 1943. Convoy on 184 departs Liverpool. 43 merchant ships in 9 columns, escorted by 6 corvettes and 2 destroyers. The 6 silent ships are spread throughout the formation. No one has told the convoy commodore about the experiment. No one has told the U-boats. The test will be live. German naval intelligence has tracked the convoy's departure. 37 U-boats, Wolfpack Group Meise, deploy in patrol lines directly across the convoy's expected route. They are waiting. They are listening. April 25th, 1943. Mid-Atlantic, 2:14 a.m. Aboard U-264. Kapitan Lieutenant Hartwig. Looks studies his charts. His hydrophone operator has been tracking convoy sounds for 6 hours. But he's confused. Contact weakening, Herr Kapitän. Original bearing 290, but the signal is intermittent. Some ships very loud, some almost silent. Looks frowns. Intermittent? That's impossible. Either you hear a convoy or you don't. Ja, Kapitän, but I am tracking multiple signatures. Some ships are clear at 40 kilometers. Others they disappear at 5 kilometers. It makes no sense. Looks orders U-264 to periscope depth. Through the scope, he sees the convoy. Dark shadows against a dark sky. But something is wrong. His hydrophones should be hearing all 43 ships. Instead, he's only tracking 27. 6 ships are acoustically invisible. The other 10 are simply too far away. 6 ships scattered throughout the convoy are generating no acoustic signature at all. Looks makes a decision that will save Allied lives. He targets only the ships he can hear clearly. The modified vessels, now quieter than the surrounding ambient ocean noise, slip past the entire wolf pack completely, utterly undetected. April 27, 1943. 600 miles west of Ireland. The full force of Wolfpack Mesa achieves contact with ON 184. Over 18 hours, the attacks are relentless. By the time the sun rises, they have sunk 9 merchant ships, 3,200 men in lifeboats, 47,000 tons of cargo on the ocean floor. But here is the critical statistic. Of the 9 ships sunk, 0 were the modified vessels. The 6 ships with Lawson's acoustic dampening system, including the SS William Eustis, survive untouched. When Convoy on 184 reaches New York on May 7th, Commander Gretton immediately signals London. Modified vessels showed 0 enemy engagement despite comparable positions within convoy formation. Acoustic dampening, effective under combat conditions. Recommend immediate fleet-wide implementation. May 12, 1943. Admiralty Statistical Analysis. The Western Approaches Command runs the numbers, and the numbers are staggering. In March 1943, before acoustic dampening, average U-boat detection range, 11.4 nautical miles. Convoy ships sunk per Wolfpack engagement, 31% loss rate. After acoustic dampening, May to July 1943. Average U-boat detection range, 0.6 nautical miles. Convoy ships sunk per Wolfpack engagement, 4.7% loss rate. Ship losses dropped by 85%. But here's the other side of the equation. U-boats that previously detected convoys from 50 miles away now had to approach within half a mile to hear them. This brought them into ASDIC range, into radar range, into visual range. The Wolfpack tactics collapsed because submarines cannot coordinate attacks on targets they cannot hear. U-boat losses increased by 400%. May 1943 becomes known as Black May in German naval history. It is the month the Battle of the Atlantic turns. Allied forces sink 41 U-boats. That's 25% of Germany's entire operational submarine fleet, gone in 30 days. Gross Admiral Karl Dönitz writes in his war diary on May 24, 1943. His words, those of a defeated man. The enemy has achieved technical supremacy, which has robbed the U-boat of its most effective weapon. Surprise attack. Convoys have become nearly invisible to hydrophone surveillance. We can no longer predict attack positions. The old certainties have vanished.